如果用未来的眼光打造30年以后所需的金融体系，数字货币可能是非常重要的核心。今天的金融确实不需要数字货币。
Once China's most celebrated entrepreneur, and now a man out of favor.
China's most famous tech tycoon seems to have just disappeared.
And now many are questioning, where is Jack Ma?
These are Jack Ma's provocative words that drew the ire of the CCP. Hundreds, if not thousands, of executives in attendance at the Bund Finance Summit in Shanghai in October 2020 heard him lambaste the CCP as well as China's financial loss during the conference. One may say that these were Jack Ma's infamous final words before his entire life was turned upside down. The story of Jack Ma should serve as a warning. It tells the story of what occurs when the CCP chooses to pursue you. The story illustrates the futility of capitalism in the face of unbridled political power and an unjust system. What happens to dissenters in China? What steps has Xi Jinping employed to make an example of Jack Ma? In this video, we discuss the CCP-Jack Ma crisis. From being renowned throughout China as a worldwide entrepreneur, Jack Ma has now become a castaway. But we must first comprehend the business magnate and his empire to fully comprehend how the CPC under President Xi Jinping disarmed and dismantled the legacy of Jack Ma. At the time when the government encouraged entrepreneurship to relieve the pressure on finding work for millions of recent university graduates, Jack Ma came to represent what was possible. He was an icon, an idol, a symbol of strength of Chinese entrepreneurship, and a deep source of pride to the nation. But Ma made the careless error of denouncing the Chinese financial world while speaking on stage. Although promoting newer, better policies that he believed would promote China more, he mocked the system, calling it archaic and out of date. That was the last time that Jack Ma made an appearance before the Chinese media. Since criticizing the attitude of Chinese regulators towards tech businesses at the summit in Shanghai 2 years ago, Ma, the founder of the e-commerce behemoth Alibaba, and until the tech clampdown, the richest person in China, has hardly been seen in public. Ma claimed that China's financial system needed to be improved, but the CCP believed that Ma was encouraging the public to seek change. It did not sit well with Xi Jinping. President Xi claimed that Ma was trying to establish a new order of things and had publicly mocked the CCP systems. Everyone realized that the game was over as soon as the announcement was made. Ma was now officially a target. The CCP was the predator, and Ma was not to escape. Just like all the other prey that the CCP hunts down within its borders. He was China's Tony Stark, the ever-present billionaire, but he is nowhere to be found. Months earlier, he had been scheduled for events that were abruptly cancelled. This covers both his judging position and an African talent show he founded, even in the business world. Ma also presided over the General Association of Young Entrepreneurs, which cancelled its annual convention while he was away. The CCP was hell-bent on breaking his wings, so they started with dismantling his empire. Ant Group was required by China's central bank to establish a distinct financial holdings firm that would be subject to the same kind of capital requirements as banks. This was a week before the company's planned IPO, which was said to be the largest in history and would have been valued at more than 35 billion. Yes, the initial public offering of Ant would have made it the most valuable corporation in the world, but it was not successful. Why? China's government prevented that from happening. Beijing also ordered Alibaba to sell off some of its media assets, which include Hong Kong's South China Morning Post, as the government tightened down on the rising public influence held by the country's enormous digital titans such as Alibaba and Tencent. Beijing nearly shut down Tencent's gaming empire, which at the time was the biggest in the world, when President Xi's administration attributed young myopia to addictive blockbusters like Honor of Kings. The regulatory war against Alibaba came to an end after a few months when the business was hit with a record-breaking $2.8 billion punishment for anti-competitive behavior, though it was still required to take the comprehensive behavior modification program. Then the company's founder vanished after the IPO was abruptly cancelled. Coming after his statement, the CCP began tearing his empire apart. The Ant Group's executives were called, the corporation was given an order by the Chinese regulators to revamp operations. At that point, the door was open for the huge state banks and other forms of government-controlled organizations to invest in the company, buying substantial holdings and firmly handing what had always been Ma's precious brainchild over to the CCP. After the state-led crackdown began, Jack Ma suffered losses as a result of the scrutiny. He lost $11 billion in 2021 alone and eventually gave up control of the Ant Group with no intention of returning. In less than a blink, Alibaba's extremely popular internet browser, which had previously held the second-place position in the Chinese market with more than 400 million active users, was removed from all the app stores in China. The browser was no longer available by the time the CCP and its regulators were done. This bottomed Alibaba's share price to a sixth of what it used to be. And right now, it's still at less than 50% of its all-time high. President Xi wanted to set an example that no one was above the party, and Ma was the ideal person to do that to. In China, the CCP is prioritized over all other interests. No tech company has ever been successful in China without clashing with regulators or crossing their constantly moving lines, as can be shown by looking at the history of tech firms there. There are invisible lines that should not be crossed, and most of the time, companies discover what those lines are after they have already crossed them. The government is simply reminding the newest crop of business people with the present crackdown that they can be wealthy and powerful, but only if they follow the laws. Because of this, it is more surprising that it took this long and that Jack is getting his desserts. So what's left for Jack Ma? That is the big question. All that is known is that the businessman is remaining quiet and keeping to himself. For the time being, it is unclear if he is attempting to pass the time or hide from the CCP. We only have a warning story and a lot of questions that only Jack Ma can respond to. It's interesting to note that even the Chinese official media is covering Jack Ma's return in an obvious effort to allay concerns about his well-being. He would be traveling the globe if he were doing well. The 58-year-old has kept a low profile while residing outside of his native China, except for a brief trip to the Netherlands, a 48-second online appearance early last year that one analyst compared to a hostage video, and Ma's 88-meter super yacht Zen being spotted docking off the Spanish island of Mallorca last summer. Ma has most recently resided in Japan, according to the Financial Times, which is owned by the Japanese media giant Nikkei. A newspaper reported that the former English teacher turned tech star has been residing with his family in Tokyo for about 6 months, citing unidentified sources. His time has been divided between work and play, including frequent excursions to the US and Israel, as well as hot springs and ski resorts in the rural areas of Japan. Ma, whose wealth has more than halved from almost $50 billion to $21.7 billion, or 18 billion pounds, as regulators have targeted actions against his enormous Chinese tech empire, is said to have kept his public activities to a minimum and is now secluded from the world with his family, personal security detail, and chef included, attending a few private members' clubs, one of which is known to be popular with wealthy Chinese. But what could Jack Ma have done differently? Should he have kept quiet as the financial system rots and lags behind the rest of the world? Or should he make the most of his influence and draw attention to the ills of Chinese bureaucracy? You might agree that courage is better than cowardice, but for someone of such great influence as Jack Ma, there must be more effective ways to subtly introduce the change you want to see in the world without directly calling for a headbutt challenge. You can now compare it to a voter risking his life by wearing a t-shirt that praises a political party when it is more effective to just vote. In the end, it could be said that Jack Ma was brave and should be saluted for that. But his bravery neither brought about the change he wanted for China, nor did he become better off. Maybe Jack Ma would end up in a concentration camp where Uyghurs are still being massacred. Who knows? Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you stay in touch with the world around us. Feel free to check out these other videos. See you next time.